Welcome to New Life Live with Stephen Arterburn. For 35 years, New Life has been transforming lives one at a time thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's today's host, Dr. Alice Benton.
Hello and welcome to New Life Live. I'm Dr. Alice Benton. Have the pleasure of being here with Dr. Jill Hubbard, a clinical psychologist, and Marc Cameron, a marriage and family therapist. And we welcome all of you listeners to the show today. We'll have some teaching a little bit later on in the show, but we want to go to a call here. We've got a couple callers on the line. We want to speak with Leah. She is calling us from Georgia, listening on Sirius XM. Leah, welcome. You are live on the radio. How can we help you today?
Hello. It's a pleasure to talk to you all today. And I just want to make a comment. I also have a question, but first I just want to make a comment about a call from a gentleman last week, and it was with doctors Chris, Alice, yourself, and Sherry. Mm-hmm. And he was scheduled to euthanize himself. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you remember that call.
I certainly do.
And I just had to call in and just tell you what that exchange did to me. Just hearing, and I've listened to the show for many, many years now, and I'm always in awe of the knowledge and the wisdom that you have. And I'm honestly, so many times I listen to you guys speak and I'm like, man, they are so smart. I wish I were as smart as these people. but something different, I felt something different during that call. And that man was, I mean, he was beyond on the edge. I mean, life had really just pushed him off the mountain. I mean, he was hanging precariously on a branch, sticking out the side of the mountain. He was gone just about. And how I watched and heard how you three partnered with God to pull that man from the abyss. I mean, it was, I get chills even reliving that moment because I felt the presence of God. I felt his anointing on each of you as you we're not just, we are his workmanship, yes, but we are workers together with Christ. And you partnered with God to pull that man from death. And I had to call and tell you guys how great a work God is doing through you. I mean, it was an honor. It was spectacular to watch. It was a miracle. I mean, I was witnessing a miracle. And I'm like, I know I am struggling. I'm struggling financially. I'm struggling in a lot of areas in my life right now, but I have to find a way to support this ministry. You guys have been critical, in my life. You pulled me off the ledge many a time. And I have to just tell you how God used you. He used you, truly. So that's just what I wanted to say on that.
Leah, we'll comment on that here and hold on because we can talk to you on the other side of the break. Glen is his name, and we thought it was miraculous that he even had the courage to call to tell us he had that appointment to be euthanized about 2 weeks down the road, and that he let us, you're right, through the Holy Spirit, try to talk him out of it. And he agreed to cancel the appointment, to make an appointment at an inpatient rehab. Leah, my family and I have been talking about him all weekend. I'm seeing chatter about him on the internet because that man had the courage to call. So Glen, I hope you're listening right now, knowing that you ministered to all of us by your courageous call. And you've been held up in prayer, sir, as we are hoping that you're living out what you said you would do in that call. Leah, it means so much to us to hear this from you. And again, hold on because we want to hear your question, and we will get right back after this break. Talk to you soon.
It had become very apparent that some of the things I was involved with were taking over my life.
In today's world, men are barraged with inappropriate content and images all day, every day. Some say that certain behaviors are just no big deal. They're just part of being a guy. But it's simply not true. It's a battleground for every man, and the opportunities to fail are everywhere. The Every Man's Battle Intensive can help.
After 7 years, he just, in one weekend, came back a completely changed man.
For over 20 years, New Life Ministries has been helping men regain their integrity and purity through their one-of-a-kind Every Man's Battle Intensive.
He said this is something that every man should go to. It was definitely life-changing.
Now the intensive is coming to Orange County, California, June 28th through the 30th. Don't wait for him to call. Register online at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and use the discount code NLL to save $50.
I just can't say enough of what New Life has done for our marriage.
To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. Again, I'm Dr. Alice Benton here with Jill Hubbard and Marc Cameron, and we were reminiscing about Glen's call. And I want to put out that invitation to everybody listening. Suicide is something that is so difficult to talk about. So whether you're struggling with suicidal thoughts, you've experienced a suicide attempt of a family member, or you've actually lost somebody due to suicide, there is such good help available to help get you through it, to walk you through it, and even to save a life, as happened with Glen, all by God's power. And so please come past that shame and embarrassment and isolation to talk with us about it. We're already on the phone with Leah. And Leah, I think that you have a question in addition to your support for Glen.
I do. So I have been married for over 20 years now, and it has not been a healthy relationship. And what I have noticed that I have changed as a person just in my interactions with other people because of my relationship with my husband. It's been oppressive. Honestly, it's been emotional abuse. And in the past, before I got married, I had a love for people. I had a love to connect with people, even though I was quite an introvert. I am an avoider. I'm definitely have avoidance tendencies. But yet I had this love for people and wanted to connect with people. Even though I was afraid, I still had a love for people. And now it's like I do things subconsciously, it's seemingly to push people away from me. My husband and I are estranged right now. We are separated. But I just sitting in this space where I am alone, looking back over my life and where I am and where I need to be and what's going on inside of me, I see this pattern of my pushing people away. And I'm wondering, is there a connection to trauma and my now wanting to shun people? And I know this is not God, so it is very frustrating to me. I'm like, God, this is not you. It's not like I am overtly mean to people. But, if for instance, if someone is checking up on me because they have some knowledge of what's been going on with me, there's something in me that just wants to retreat. And it's like overwhelming. Go ahead.
You ask a very good pointed question. Does historical trauma affect current day behavior? And maybe you remember from Glen's call how many traumatic events and losses he'd been through in his life that were certainly affecting his suicidal thoughts in the present day. So we're going to hear more about this answer.
Well, Leah, certainly being in the relationship you're in with someone that is supposed to know you really well, and when they are not safe it does do something to you. So both your childhood trauma, which probably set you up to marry someone like this, and now the repetition through your marriage, people aren't safe. So it's unconsciously, even consciously, you have made a decision to protect yourself. And it's what we do when we get in survival mode, as well as protecting ourselves from the embarrassment and shame of, I'm in this marriage that is just not good. I wouldn't want anyone to see that. And so in that, we end up isolating ourselves. And you're admitting you already have those tendencies. And so I think the lack, I don't know that you've lost a love for people. I think that's still down in you deep, but I think you just don't feel safe to expose yourself to people, which means, especially in this separated state that you're in, you have to push yourself to get into relationships that you can start to work on that, to realize that some people can be safe. So maybe you start with a therapy relationship where there are boundaries and protection, and you can start to share yourself. And if you have a best friend that you has proven to be trustworthy, maybe you don't push her away, or you admit to her that you have been pushing her away out of your hurt and shame. So it's something you can come out of, but you have to work at it.
Leah, what's your biggest fear that might happen to get close to somebody?
Honestly, I think it's that they'll see that I am jacked up. They'll see how terrible, and this is the thought, they will see how terrible a person I am. I mean, I'm like, I'm messed up, I'm not, I might look okay on the outside, but I'm a wreck.
Yeah.
And I just don't want people to see that.
See, you know what that is, Leah? That's shame. The core of that is shame. You are afraid that people will see you as flawed, and you are assigning that to your personhood. That's the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt has to do with an action. Shame has to do with personhood. So that would be the difference between I did something wrong and there's something wrong with me. And you mentioned here that your marriage was oppressive. You went through emotional abuse, and it's hard to go through over 20 years, whether it happened the whole time or not, but years of somebody putting you down without then taking those things on and starting to believe those things about yourself. And beliefs, I like to tell people, beliefs are like anchors, right? And anchors can do two things. They can either pull you down into the depths of insecurity if you are holding on to the wrong anchor, or if you're holding on to the right anchor, it can save you in the storms of life. When you get battered around, it can keep you fixed, and you're holding on to a belief that you are flawed, that there's something wrong with you, that people won't want you. And what do you think would be a more helpful belief for you to hold on to?
Well, God was reminding me yesterday or the other day, just remember who you are in me. I mean, just focus on who I see you as, and remember who I am to you. So that really is what I need to be focused on, what God says about me.
Yeah, so so a more helpful belief, and it's not dismissing all of these other things that we know about ourselves. We can still say, I am flawed, but we can also say, but I am loved. And it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to not be perfect, and I'm a work in progress, and people learn from their mistakes, and that's a key way for how we grow, and I am working on improvement. And so it's learning to tell yourself these other messages so that it can cover over the other anchor that you have, and in doing that, you'll learn to snip that other anchor so that it can fall down and fall away, and you can hold on to this new anchor that's going to give you hope and give you life.
And even the lie that 20 years ago when you married this man, you should have known, right? Sometimes it's like the shame and embarrassment that you chose him and ended up in this situation, like you should have known and seen it all. And there's no way for you to completely have known or have seen it all. So to forgive yourself for that.
So, Leah, I want you to move from being a jacked up wreck to being a jacked up wreck in recovery. Because when we enter recovery, and especially when we do it in a group process, we find out, of course, everybody else is also a jacked up wreck, but we come together with people who are willing to admit it and even go into detail and to tell what they've done, what they're embarrassed about. Leah, some of my most embarrassing sins that I couldn't even admit to myself, I fooled myself about these. Emotional infidelity, premarital sexual behavior, and a whole lot of lies to cover all that up. Now, girl, I only have the courage and the comfort to say that here because I've said it so many times in privacy, even whispered at first because I was so afraid to admit it. But now I can say it openly because that's what God is still redeeming me from, because I'm still tempted. So when we get into relationships where we get to talk like that, and I'm not the only wreck here, it draws us out into courage, freedom, and forgiveness for all those embarrassing things. We admire people's accomplishments, but those accomplishments actually keep us at arm's length. We are drawn in when we find fellow strugglers who are working on it because they want to be better. And so let us connect you to one of our New Life Recovery groups. And if you don't have a counselor, we can also get you connected through our network of New Life counselors. And then I want to send you Healing is a Choice because it outlines how do we move from being a wreck to getting into recovery. It's the journey God wants all of us to take, but few have the courage to do it. And so we're going to send that out to you, and we want to get you started on that process. Leah, it's been a delight talking to you. Thank you for that support you gave for Glen and for our team here. And I ask that everybody would be praying for Leah. I want to talk about intimacy in marriage because it's coming up on July 26th through the 28th in Washington, D.C. And after your relationship with God, your relationship with your spouse is the next most important relationship, and it's designed to be for a lifetime. But we know most marriages, Christian or not, about 50% of them end in divorce. So it's a tough thing to maintain for a lifetime, let alone to do it well with contentedness and joy. Don't settle for a miserable marriage or even one that's just okay. We can have spiritual, emotional, and physical intimacy. You can have it in your marriage, and we can help you get there. And one of the works that we get deep into in that weekend is how we love. And I wonder, Marc, if you would share just some of the basics of how we love that people will be learning when they come to that weekend.
Yeah, and every marriage struggles, whether it's Christian or not. It's having the courage to be able to admit where you struggle, and the material that we're using at Intimacy in Marriage is based off of the book How We Love, where Milan and Kay Yurkovich show people how the imprinted attachment styles from growing up has shaped them and shaped their expectations and shaped the way that they go about trying to get their needs met or deal with needs going unmet from these learned strategies. And what we're doing is we're helping people see patterns in their relationship, and so you can start to see and overcome the pattern and see the pattern as the enemy rather than your spouse. And in doing so, you guys can learn to work together, and we're going to teach you skills of how to do something called the comfort circle, which is how to learn, how do I have this connected conversation in a safe and structured way with my spouse, learning how do I express my emotions, how do we empathize, how do we validate. And the goal is not to have agreement, the goal is to have understanding. And when we can learn to do these skills, when we can understand what truly is that polarized pull that is pulling us in one direction, whether it's to be an avoider, as Leah mentioned, or whether it's to be a pleaser or a vacillator or a controller or a victim, we can learn to see how can we engage in growth to overcome the struggle and have a more deeper, connected, emotionally intimate marriage.
I have had the honor of attending multiple intimacy and marriage intensives as I got to run one of the small groups there. And every single time my marriage received an upgrade. And I learned things I had never learned before because we go deeper and we learn from the people with whom we're in small group. And so whether your marriage is doing really well, but you could use a tune-up, or if you're deeply struggling, we've had people come with their divorce paperwork in the car and then they've torn it up by the end of the weekend because they've seen hope and they've seen that there's a path out. There are discounts available for registering early, for workshop alum, and for Club New Life members. And there are also scholarships for those in need. So often we hear, but if it's too expensive, if I don't have enough money. Don't let that be the stumbling block. Call and we'll talk you through that scholarship process. We're going to be talking with Cindy in the next segment, so hold on there, Cindy. But right now, we'll take a break, and we will be back with you right after this message.
When you give to the New Life Scholarship Fund, you're giving someone hope for a brighter future.
I was kind of in the closet and hit with my struggle. Your donation really made the difference, especially in my situation, because I ended up getting laid off from my job.
At the New Life Intensives, hurting people are able to begin a new path towards healing and freedom that has an effect on all of those around them.
I think the people who support New Life financially are people that I'll never know. I'll never be able to thank them personally for the gift that they gave to us. Their giving saved me, my husband, and our family from being torn apart.
To help hurting people to connect to the help they need, make your gift to the Scholarship Fund at newlife.com or by calling 1-800-NEW-LIFE and specifying scholarships.
Someone called and sponsored me to come this weekend. Whoever that is, just know that you saved a life. Literally, you saved my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found Life Recovery, and one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 Steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We want to connect you with involving yourself in the New Life family, which you can do by becoming a supporter of New Life. And your generosity helps hurting people connect to resources that will change their trajectory and can impact generations to come. And as you've heard, we do save lives. God saves lives through us here. You can give online at newlife.com or by calling us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. I want to welcome Cindy to the show, calling from Chicago, Illinois, listening on YouTube. There's a whole community that listens on YouTube, and there's a fun group chat that they have going on.
You can see us, too, on YouTube, unlike the radio.
So check it out there as Cindy does. Cindy, welcome to the show. How can we help you?
Thank you for having me. I've been married for 40 years, and I do have a wonderful husband. He has been, he's very responsible, but lately I have just been feeling very neglected. Actually, I probably have always felt a little bit neglected, but I'm in my 60s now, and he's in his 60s, and he's always playing sports. And he's always played sports, but lately it just seems like he just is constantly playing sports every day. And this morning, he was here working at home, and I was having coffee. He came down. He's like, "Well, I'm going to go golf now, and then later I'm playing tennis." And I just felt like, wow, I just felt like I was his mother, and all I do is clean his sweaty sports clothes, you know, and fold them, and then he's like my son, and then he's like, okay, Mom, I'm going to go play sports today. Like I just feel so neglected when it comes to the emotional part of our marriage. And I Googled something, and it really got me going. It was like 10 signs your marriage is failing. And I started to wonder if my marriage is failing after 40 years. I don't feel like my needs are being met, and I feel totally neglected, even though he is, you know, a good father and grandfather, and he provides for the family. But I just have this feeling like I just want to run away.
And Cindy, is that something you've ever been able to share with him, how lonely you're feeling and the desire to run?
Yeah, that's our biggest argument most of the time. And I'm like, can you believe we're arguing about this? Like, all I am doing is asking you for some time and attention. And what I've read is that you should be spending like 80% of your time together and 20% of your time doing what you like to do. But it seems more like it's opposite. It's more like he's doing 80% or maybe even more of his time doing what he likes to do with his free time. And I'm left scrambling, trying to figure out what to do with my time. I find myself going to the mall a lot and shopping. And then he doesn't like it when I'm buying clothes, but I do feel like I'm filling this void, you know, this void that I have. Even though I know Jesus is what we're supposed to be filling my void, and he does. I spend every morning with the Lord, and I mean, all day, God's been so good to me. I was paralyzed.
But you're lonely.
He's been there for me.
You're lonely in your marriage, and you're calling out to your husband. How does he answer when you bring that pain to his attention?
He really gets defensive. It's bizarre. I'm like, why are you getting defensive about this? Why aren't you like responding in a positive, caring nature, like putting your arm around me and saying, I love you, and don't worry, we'll make time together, we'll do that. No, he argues with me. Like, well, I do this and I don't, you know, some guy,
Cindy?
Some men travel. Some men travel. And I'm like, well, and they're never home. And then I'm like, well, what that,
okay, so Cindy...
I'm not getting my point.
Right. So, Cindy, so what I'm hearing from his responses is that, I mean, excuse me, first of all, you said he's a wonderful man in person, yes. So he's used to kind of being a good guy. And so he's trying to give you all the reasons why he is a good guy. So he's feeling like you're saying he's not a good guy.
Right.
Right. So instead of him really hearing your feelings, and yes, you would want someone that could tend to your feelings, but it's not uncommon for people, men, to get defensive when they feel like they're being criticized. And so your feelings are getting lost in all of that. Also, he may be hearing you want him to give up something. And there may be that selfish part of him that he really likes his life. I think it's very interesting that when you, first of all, you have a hard time thinking of what to do with your free time. And then when you go to the mall, you're shopping for him. So a lot, and we women do this, you know, revolve around our most significant relationship. And it doesn't feel equal or fair as we're doing a lot of the caregiving. And so there's a couple of things. Yes, your marriage needs some tending to. But I think also your own personal life and interests and friendships also need some tending to, because we're never going to get all of our needs met from one person and from our spouse, and it can feel like too big of an expectation to put on them. And I think some of the ways in which you're going about it are doing the opposite, actually, of what you're wanting. You're getting the opposite result from how you're approaching it. I think our intimacy in marriage, as we talked about, would be really great for you guys to kind of do a little bit of a tune-up adjustment in how you see each other and to develop more compassion for each other.
And it is unfair and hurtful that he is dismissing your concerns and he's defending himself. Something's off inside of him as well that he's not able to see your pain and respond with consideration and tenderness and a desire to understand. And so we'll come back, Cindy, after the break. Hold on. And Marc has wisdom to share with you as well on the other side. And so we'll be right back after this.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit it's addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. Club New Life changes lives.
I think I go way back to listening to New Life, learning so much from it, and then become a Club New Life member.
Club New Life is a monthly giving family that helps New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people.
You know, I'm so thankful because you know why I keep giving? Because I keep learning, and I'm so thankful for all the lives that you touch every day and the people's lives. So when I get to still hear the radio show, it's just so encouraging to my heart.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
And you know one reason I give? Because I feel like sometimes I'm hiding behind a counselor's couch, listening to all this great information, not paying. So my guilt of this great advice is alleviated by being a Club New Life member.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. And together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We've been talking to Cindy, who is yearning to spend more time with her husband, who's busy playing sports and is not really accepting of her concerns when she brings them to him. Marc, you had some things to say to Cindy.
Yeah, Cindy, I'm going to build upon what Jill's saying here. I wonder if the way that you're approaching your husband is what is producing the effect that you don't want to get, because people tend to be defensive when they feel like they're being attacked. And so I know that you're wanting to tell him how you feel and how hurt you are, but I'm wondering if maybe it comes off as a complaint or maybe even a criticism, and then he gets defensive and starts to defend himself, and then you're wondering, why aren't you responding to this? Why aren't you coming closer? When really what you're doing is pushing him away or keeping him at a distance. Now, there's a way that we can speak that can encourage somebody to listen, as well as there's a way that we can listen that can encourage somebody to speak. And I'm hearing you saying neglected, but I also... other words that I'm putting here is disconnected, not seen, maybe even abandoned. And somebody who develops a vacillator attachment style tends to have these recurring feelings because they have inconsistent or intermittent connections with their caregivers in childhood. And it's not always the parent's fault. Sometimes it has to do with physical availability, a divorce situation, or maybe even sometimes a parent's job. But then vacillations grow up, they go into adulthood, and they look for that consistent connection, and they may meet somebody who's more avoidant, and they jump all the way in thinking this is the consistency that I'm going to get. But then all those old feelings come back when they start to feel like they're not seen or rejected. And I wonder if that might be true for you, and if that is true for you. Coming to intimacy in marriage.
It could be.
Mm-hmm.
It could be. I mean, I did grow up in a family business. My parents were always there, but we were told to be seen and not heard.
Oh, there you go. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think you are not feeling heard, even though your husband sees you maybe in the morning, right? And he sees you talking, but he's not really hearing you, right? There's a difference between listening and hearing. Hearing, it has to do with sounds. Listening has to do with emotions and acknowledging and responding to them, and that's really what you're looking for. And so I wonder if we can send you the book How We Love. As I was talking earlier, How We Love focuses heavily in the last section of the book about how to have a conversation in an intentional way through a process called the comfort circle. But we will also teach you that at Intimacy in Marriage, especially if you're thinking maybe I'm falling out of love, or maybe our marriage is on the rocks. I highly encourage you to attend and let us help you.
And it's a weekend away with your husband, right? Immersed in relational issues.
And what you're going to do, exactly, and what you're going to do, and that's going to be your entire focus. Because oftentimes when people go to individual therapy, 50 minutes a week, you're coming from work, you're coming from stresses, you're leaving, you're going back to stresses, you got to wrap it up. But Intimacy in Marriage is an intensive. And so we're going to intensively look at these issues and help you focus for the whole weekend, as well as the group process. Sometimes the group process is scary for folks, but as you learn to open up and you start to hear other people having similar experiences, it normalizes the whole thing, and it helps you not feel so alone. And in that sharing is often where the transformation happens.
Cindy, I want to praise you because I see so much hope in your response to Marc when you said, oh, that could be. You're willing to be introspective, and I hear humility in that. And when we go to our spouses with humility, of being able to say something like, maybe I've been going about this wrong, or maybe I've been off-putting in how I've been saying this, that humility tends to make it feel safer in the conversation for our spouse. And instead of a complaint, we try to bring a gentle request. Could we have lunch together sometime this week? Would you make that space for me? Because I miss you and I want to spend time with you. That can be inviting versus off-putting. I'm sure you've tried it, but I want you to try again and see if your spouse is willing to come to our weekend, our intensive. I also want to caution you, because when we women bring our pain, it can feel so overwhelming to our spouse, especially if your husband is more avoidant about emotional issues. And maybe in his childhood, maybe there was overwhelming pain that he had to run away from for survival purposes. John Gottman gives us this ratio, and he tells us we all need about 5 positives, 5 statements of encouragement in order to receive 1 complaint or concern. But we almost all flip that on its head and give many more complaints than we do praises. And so rebalancing can also reopen our spouse's ears to be able to hear from us. And we're so sorry for the pain and loneliness.
Well, and I also want to mention here too, Cindy, is something to consider too, a stage of life where you guys are at. You talked about being in your 60s and your husband in his 50s, and you're moving toward...
No, he's in his 60s.
Oh, he's in his 60s. Okay. And so he's moving towards retirement here. And when we get...
midlife, and not wanting to get old.
And so... In that, there may be this part of him that says, well, let me enjoy sports while I can, or let me prove to myself that I can still do these things. Exactly.
Still vital, right.
And so as you learn to do these invitations and you invite him into a conversation, make sure that you're creating time that you're going to listen to him too, not just that you want him to hear your heart and hear you out. Be curious about what he may be going through and what he may be thinking or even struggling with that he hasn't shared with you, because even in that conversation, that will be a connection for you guys, and that will lead to the byproduct of wanting to spend more time together.
So, Cindy, thank you for your call. We will send you How We Love, and if you stay on the line, we'll get you connected with those details about our upcoming intensive. We're going to talk with Dee now, who's calling us from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, listening on WFIL. Dee, welcome to the show. How can we help you?
Hello. I was wondering what the difference between emotionally focused therapy for couples is and the Gottman method, which I heard you just mentioning about the statements of encouragement. I've heard of also the emotionally focused therapy for couples, and what's the differences? And then my husband was also told he should be getting cognitive behavioral therapy or DBT. An Amen clinic told him that, and he doesn't want to do them. And we got a long history of already lots of therapy stuff. So I'm wondering what emotionally focused therapy and the Gottman method, and what's the differences and which is better.
Mm-hmm. Will you name some of the things you and your husband have been struggling with because of which you're seeking out therapy?
Oh, many, many years of his sexual addictions. And he's been to Every Man's Battle 3 or 4 times, and he's on the weekly call, and he'll still be looking at porn, but won't acknowledge anything, as he won't even acknowledge it as really being wrong. And so, and other things too. And
so that's.
And I'm in a restore group. I've been to Restore Online. I'm in a restore group. We've been to the Intimacy and Marriage. He's just, the Amen Clinic said, yeah, he could have ADHD, but he's just taking vitamins for it. And whatever else. It's just, he's almost 70. I'm in my 60s. And yeah, and sometimes I think with he doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to tell me anything he's learned in the weekly EMB or anything. Sometimes I think individual therapies feels like more hiding. He's very avoidant. If I try to ask questions, he'll shut down. Even if I make general requests, he's oppositional. Yeah, it seems to be getting worse as we get older.
Dee, what boundaries have you held with your husband to let him know that, I mean, I'm sure you've said that you don't like this, but what boundaries, what actions have you taken to show him that this behavior is unacceptable, and also to see that, you know, if you continue down this path, there's a knock-on effect, there's a consequence that will happen? What have you done?
Well, the one main boundary is, for years I don't sleep next to him. He sleeps in the chair in the lounge chair in the living room, and that's been I don't know how many years it is now, maybe 8 years or more. I don't know. This is long going. I've talked to the counselor from his Every Man's Battle group, and the counselor doesn't know what to do with him either.
Yeah,
so I just don't know what to do, and that's but he's so loving to everybody. Most people don't know what's going on. And so, and the family, doesn't want me to leave him. I have talked to, I just, at this point, I can't, we've been married 45 years. I'm like, no, I would be blamed for breaking up the family if I left, and I wouldn't even know where to go. I don't have any energy left even to do that. So I just thought if maybe the Gottman, he was kind of a little bit interested in the Gottman method at one point, and I was also told by the Restore group the emotionally focused therapy, and I don't know the difference.
You're just grasping, looking for hope, looking for a way out of this, and you're exhausted. Hold on, we'll get back to you after this break.
We all face days where life throws us a curveball and our routines or plans get disrupted. Things we wanted to do are forced to take a backseat to the unexpected demands of the day. If you normally listen to New Life Live on a radio station, well, you might not be able to that day. And on these hectic days when you're feeling stressed or frazzled, hearing the sound of counsel given on New Life Live is just what you need to navigate the unexpected things of life.
Every time I'm troubled or I have a problem, I'll cut on New Life, and there's always something that is said that is helpful to me.
By listening, I have learned more than I can ever express about how God wants me to live.
Download the New Life app for the easiest way to listen wherever you are and at a time that's convenient for you, or watch the show on our YouTube channel. You can even subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast provider. You never have to miss a day of New Life. Wherever you are, we are. Dr. Heidi Summers on coaching.
A lot of people don't understand the difference between counseling and coaching. Coaches can help you with strategizing. Not everyone is in a crisis or recovering from a trauma. A lot of people just need help getting to where they want to be, and they don't know how to do that. And so it's helpful to have a third party come in to give objective feedback, set goals, create accountability, and help you walk out what your goals actually are.
If you need a coach for life, your career, relationships, your health and fitness, leadership, and more, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been screened and certified with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
Coaches are intended to help you live in the present and goal set toward what it is you want for the future.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and talk to us about getting a New Life coach today. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We have been talking to Dee, and she and her husband have tried so many different forms of therapies and intensives, and her husband is still using porn, denying that he has a problem despite being in an ongoing group. Dee, you said you're just exhausted, and you wonder if a different form of therapy would help. Jill?
Well, Dee, gosh, we just really feel for you. This is a long, hard road. And so in doing this, a couple of things. One, okay, the different therapies. But for you, I hear that you've gone to Restore. I think that it's really important for you to build yourself up where you're at. It's hard to think of making radical changes, and I hear you when you say the family would be so upset with you. And so I'm not going to ask you to leave your marriage, but to do things that create more of a life for you. You've added Restore around you. I don't know if you're in individual therapy,
yes,
but
sometimes.
Okay, well, I think it's important to have that support ongoing, Dee, and to do the things like, let's say, if you were to leave, what would you do? Because a lot of times people think the actual leaving is going to make the difference, but it's what you do in that new realm. Start doing those things now. Do the things that you would do without him now to create a life that feels meaningful for you. But I'm not saying give up on him per se. I do hear that they were suggesting the DBT therapy because of his destructive ongoing choices, and DBT is often really good at redirecting people's choices. The emotionally focused therapy, that focuses on just kind of the moment by moment interactions between people. It's less about getting into all the details of the story, but taking small segments and looking at the process, how you guys work with each other in process. So again, less about the content, and it can be very effective.
It's about patterns, and in DBT they focus on distancer pursuer, and it sounds like you are the pursuer in this relationship, and your husband is the distancer.
Right, you're saying that's in the DB?
I'm sorry, EFT. Sorry,
EFT.
I
know. I was trying to. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so it looks at all those patterns and how that's getting stirred up. And the therapist is, again, working moment by moment with you and highlighting things that we just do naturally and aren't aware of the impact. And so it slows things down, too.
Dee, we're curious. As your husband denies he has any problem at all, why has he gone to every man's battle more than once?
Good point. Maybe because at first, this is going some years back, and I was kind of insisting he had to do something, and he went to Amen Clinic in January because I caught him looking for porn within 10 minutes span of leaving Christmas morning to go to our son's house. Like he had 10 minutes, and I caught him and so I'm like, you got to do something. And so he shuts down, avoids. Then I hear him, like he does the blame shifting in the gaslight. I'm learning all these things, and I will call him out on them. So it's not as those things aren't as bad. I'm not as upset as I used to be.
So Dee, here's what I'm hearing is that you are trying to cycle through to find the right therapeutic approach to, find the winner, to say, I found it. This is the thing that's going to solve this for us. But if somebody doesn't have the internal motivation to do something, you can explore all of these different things, but if they're not willing, if it's not in their heart, they're going to eventually fall short here. So just to simply answer your question here about the different styles, EFT is about patterns, how they originate from childhood, distance or pursuer. Gottman is looking at how the way you fight and invite. CBT has to do with behavior experiments to change behaviors and emotions by challenging each of those things and thoughts. And DBT has to do with tolerating emotions. But if your husband doesn't have the internal motivation to do these things, there's two different types of motivations that we have. We have internal motivation where I want to do this. I don't like it about me and I'm going to make efforts to change. And then we have external motivation where something happens on the outside where the consequence for continuing in the behavior becomes greater than the actual benefit of engaging in the behavior. And sometimes we have to create that situation for somebody else. And so I encourage you to get into individual therapy on a more consistent basis. And where I would start for you is to learn to look at the origins of this pleaser. I think you have a pleaser attachment that's inside you, the part of you that yes, you're confronting in a certain way, but there's this inability, I think, to really kind of stick to a consequence that can make it intolerable for your husband. And I think you need somebody who's going to help empower you. And I think people who have pleaser attachment styles, they do a lot of growth in therapy when they have a therapist who can challenge them, who can teach them, who can role play and practice with them things to say, help them to discover resources so that if they do set boundaries, how they can learn to have support in their life and also learn how to tolerate negative emotions.
What Marc is describing is allowing a crisis to build for your husband if he continues to use pornography based on the ways you will pull back from him. And so as you have had the courage to sleep in separate bedrooms, you may add to that there are privileges or ways you serve that you will only share with a husband who is sober. And so it may be that you pull back on cooking, you pull back on doing laundry, things that might matter to him over time to allow a crisis to develop. Sounds like you have something to say to that?
I already had pulled back on like laundry, and he just ruined this, and it didn't go anywhere.
And so D, I'm going to interrupt. D, I'm going to interrupt. Did you go back to doing laundry again?
After a couple of years.
And it's unbelievable that people don't hit their bottom with years, 8 years, you said, of not sleeping in the same room, years of not doing his laundry.
That's how much he can't tolerate his feelings, right? The second there's any space, he's got to go back.
But I do underlying fears.
Dee, I do want to challenge you though that you may pull back or you may soften sometimes the boundary so he can wait you out in some ways. But now I am also concerned that you're so tired, and I'm sure you're feeling depression and such loneliness in this marriage where your husband is so dismissive of you with this ongoing pornography use. So I want to make sure you get a medical checkup, both to check hormones, physiology, if that's affecting your fatigue, but also if you're suffering from depression or anxiety and may benefit from medications. I'm going to confuse things and add one more therapy to the mix of what you're considering. But eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, helps people to get to the subconscious level of the emotions, the beliefs, and even the history that sometimes does influence and can even drive our current day behavior. The fear your husband may be holding from his childhood, the shame he may be holding, whatever it is that he went through, it may be impacting him to such an extent that EMDR might be a good consideration for both of you. We want to send you Worthy of Her Trust because it lists out what you can and should expect from a man that you're married to, because I want you to hold high standards for yourself and for him. Our Every Man's Battle, the intensive, is June 28th in Orange County. But that early bird rate ends tomorrow, so please take advantage of it. And some people need to attend multiple times to break that cycle of addiction. Thank you for listening, folks. God be with you.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Thanks for watching today. We love helping people. I hope you sense that. And we know that there's always hope if you find the right resource. Now, if something we've said to somebody else applies to you, that's fantastic. That's what we're hoping for. But also, if you want to join us directly, you can call 1-800-229-3000 between 1 and 3 Eastern Time, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. Those are the best times to get through. And while you're here on YouTube, check out these other videos that we've done to help people see where they could grow or a different path to take. And if you do that, would you give us a thumbs up on the video? And please subscribe to this channel. There are many ways that we can help you outside of the radio program, and it's very hard for some to pick up a phone and dial 1-800-NEW-LIFE. But when you do, we put you in touch with somebody who cares about you, knows all the resources out there, and they're going to find the best for you. There is no reason to struggle alone. I hope to see you tomorrow. Hope you'll invite somebody else to come and join that maybe needs just a little bit of help along the way. I'll see you next time.